Hi, I'm Sarah Kamiani, bringing you Geula Mindset, where we turn Gullus into Geula. And as we now work together to fight in the spiritual battle against the enemies of Israel, I want to share a key understanding of Geula Mindset, which is that the only purpose for darkness is to conceal the light. Darkness has no purpose unto itself. So once the light is revealed, once the light is extracted from the darkness has to go away because it ceases to have a reason to exist. And this is really important to understand because when we're praying, we don't just want to pray for Hashem to take away the darkness. It's so much more effective. It's so much more impactful to pray that Hashem should help us to reveal the light that is in this darkness, to extract the light from within us so that the darkness can automatically and naturally go away. And there's many ways to come at this in terms of revealing the light in this dreadful darkness that we're now experiencing. But I want to share what I've been focusing on since pretty much the beginning of the war. And it started for me when my husband was sharing his deep frustrations and anger at the different ways that the Israeli military and the Israeli government failed the people of the South. And when he first started to share with me examples, I first started to get angry with him. But then as he continued, I just started to calm down. And I said, of course, that's how it must be. Because one of the purposes of Chevle Mashiach, the birth pangs of Mashiach, is to bring us to the crystal clear awareness that we cannot put our faith and trust in man, and we could only put our faith and trust in Hashem. And so it makes sense that as we experience now the Chevle Mashiach, it makes sense that it should happen, it should unfold in such a way that it would be so obvious to us that there's only Hashem to rely on. And since that time, this conversation I had with my husband was a few weeks ago. And since that time, there's only been more examples of this. People are getting angry at how there are so many people in the supposedly democratic free world who are either justifying Hamas's massacre or outright supporting them. And there's so many people trying to convince them to, not to believe the propaganda. But again, we need to understand that we cannot put our faith and trust in man. Yes, it's fair to work to fight the propaganda, but not from a place where we need the support of other people, because ultimately we should only be putting our faith and trust in Hashem. So the thing is, though, is that for many of us, this idea is not such a massive shift in consciousness. The fact that I'm seeing Jewish people all over the world praying, learning Torah, doing mitzvos, doing chesed, working on achdus, unity. The fact that I see thousands of chayalim wanting to wear tzitzis, and so many people working really hard to get them the tzitzis that they want. This means that we already know that this is a war of God, that we need to turn to Hashem for our salvation. And it's a problem then if that's where we stop, if we ended at that, because this darkness that we're experiencing now is huge. It's awful. And what that means is that the light that is ready to be revealed in us because of this dreadful darkness, that light is also huge. So it's not enough to just reiterate and strengthen and confirm and validate what we already believe. We need to go much, much deeper. And so what I want to suggest is that when it comes to the big things in life, such as this war, on a global level, or sometimes in our personal lives, we experience really big things. When we're dealing with the very big things in life, it's much easier, I think, to recognize Ein Od Milvado. There's nothing but Hashem, and we can only turn to Hashem for help. But I think that when it comes to the day-to-day operating of our lives, the day-to-day struggles, which can be very painful, but still, they're the everyday problems. I think we have a much harder time recognizing there's nothing but God. I originally gave this talk to women in a couple of different communities, and it was in person. And I said to them, imagine if suddenly we all just started to share with each other about our personal problems and the reasons that we have them. It was just like a full disclosure meeting where we really opened up and heard from each other about what we're struggling with and why we're struggling with it. From my experience, I think that in that conversation, we wouldn't hear too much about Hashem, right? Like, for example, if someone was talking about their struggles with money, they would, be likely to talk about how tuition is so expensive or inflation is so high. If someone was complaining about their kids, they would talk about why their kids are so difficult. If someone was complaining about their shalom bayis, forget about it. They could write a book on all the reasons why their spouse is the reason for their shalom bayis problems. And when people do bring Hashem into the picture, very often I find that it's coming from a disempowered place. It's coming from a place of resignation to their problems, right? Like, oh, I guess Hashem just wants me to be sick, or Hashem just wants me to be miserable in my marriage. Hashem just wants me to struggle financially. It's a kapara. Hashem just wants me to have trouble getting married. Hashem just wants me to have trouble having kids. It's just what Hashem wants. And it's almost like we're blaming God and resigning ourselves as a victim of life. And so I want to take this back and move back again to the big picture and remind us all that, again, when we're looking at the big picture, right, what's the purpose of Chavlei Mashiach? To bring us to an awareness that we have only Hashem to rely on, there's nothing but God. So that what? So that we could just be miserable into eternity and forever just say, it's all God? No, of course not. The whole point of the Chavlei Mashiach is to bring us to the realization that there is nothing but God. So that what? So that we can have redemption. Eino milvado. That Eino milvado consciousness. There's nothing but God. That brings redemption. And so too, on a personal level, it also brings personal redemption. Now, I want to give a little demonstration of a visual aid of what it looks like when we connect with Hashem and experience a personal geula, personal redemption from that connection with Hashem. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen for a moment. 1 second. Okay, so, and this demonstration is specifically showing how we can experience a personal geula from with a deep relationship with Hashem, specifically as it relates to all our relationships, which usually accounts for a lot of our troubles. This fishnet represents all humanity, okay? And each string in between each set of knots represents each individual soul. So here I highlighted in red what I'll call my soul, right? And then next to that one, next to the red one over here, let's say is my husband. You can follow the arrow. And then over here is, let's say, my parents, and around it is my kids, my siblings, and I'm moving farther and farther away, my friends, my community, all of Klal Yisrael, and then all of humanity. Right? So we see here that it's complete illusion to think that we are really all separate from one another. Yes, we are all individuals, but we are completely interconnected with one another. So So now, what happens when I directly connect myself to Hashem, which means that I understand that everyone else is just an illusion. It's not an illusion that they exist, but it is an illusion that they have any power over me and the circumstances of my life. I only turn to Hashem. Hashem, there's nothing, no one but Hashem who has an influence over me and over my life. What happens? I rise. When I come to that Ein Od Milvado consciousness, I am rising. I'm rising spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, psychologically, in every which way. What happens when I rise? I'm going to share my screen again. When I rise, look who rises with me. Look at that. This is me over here rising, and consequently, without me trying to control anyone, without me trying to get anybody to change and try to convince anyone of anything, without me getting in anyone's faces and trying to control anything or anyone, everyone around me automatically starts to rise as well. So my husband is rising, my parents are rising, my siblings are rising, my friends, my family, community, and the whole world eventually starts to rise. And then imagine another area of this fishnet, because it's a big fishnet, right? Another area where another holy woman is rising, and she's bringing along her family and her friends and her community. And there's another holy woman rising, and she's doing the same. And suddenly you have a whole world filled with people who are each rising, healing, transforming, changing without anybody trying to control anybody else or try to convince anybody else of anything. So when I thought to do this visual presentation, I thought to myself, it's a nice idea, but if I were watching this presentation, afterwards, I would go home and do the same thing that I was doing before, because even though in theory, I understand that it makes sense to operate differently, how do I actually do that, right? What's a practical way, a practical step that we can take towards Ein Od Milvado consciousness and actually experience the help and support that we get from Hashem when we do this? So I thought to share one line that if truly applied and used, it will change your life, okay? And that one line is, Hashem will show the way. Hashem will show me the way. How do I help my child without trying to control him and get him to change? I don't know, but Hashem does, and Hashem will show the way. How do I heal my chronic illness? Just by attributing all power only to Hashem? Hashem will show the way. How do I afford life when life feels so unaffordable? Just by attributing all power only to Hashem. Hashem will show the way. How do I heal my relationships with very difficult people in my life? Just by attributing all power only to Hashem. Hashem will show the way. How do I experience menuchas hanefesh and joy in life, given my very painful life circumstances, just by attributing all power only to Hashem? I don't know, but Hashem does, and Hashem will show the way. How do I have shalom bayis? If my husband has no interest in changing, no interest in going to therapy, how do I have shalom bayis? Just by attributing all power only to Hashem. You know the answer. Hashem will show the way. This line, Hashem will show the way, the reason it's so powerful, because it activates 3 of our soul's superpowers. We have many superpowers that Hashem gives to us, obviously. And this line activates at least 3 of them. The first superpower it activates is our ratzon, which is our authentic soul-based desires. Every one of us has authentic soul-based desires that are buried. We bury them. Why do we bury them? Because we don't think it's possible to have them. And because we don't think it's possible to have them, we just turn it off. We just turn that desire off, because why feel a desire for something that you know you can't have? That's a problem, though, because ratzon is a powerful force that draws us to that which we desire. So when we say Hashem will show the way, what we're saying is, I'm standing here, what I want is over there, and I have no idea how to get there. But I'm still going to keep my ratzon alive, and I'm just going to allow myself to want it, even though I don't know how to get there, because Hashem will show the way. The second power that this line activates is that of Amunah, right? Where we understand, I don't know how to do this. I don't have the answers. I can't do this, but Hashem can. Hashem has the answers. Hashem could do anything, and Hashem will show the way. The third power that this activates is bitachon, trust. But not just trust that everything Hashem does is for the good. Something that the Lubavitcher Rebbe emphasized a lot was the importance of having bitachon in revealed good, trusting that Hashem wants revealed good for us. So we're not saying, maybe Hashem will show the way if he wants, if he thinks it's a good idea. We're saying Hashem will show the way. Parentheses, or parenthetically, I would say that, of course, truth always exists in paradox. And so, of course, we also need to be surrendered to Hashem. We also need to understand that we don't understand the full picture, and we really don't know at the end of the day what is best for us. But what we don't want is that this appropriate surrendering to Hashem should overpower and squash the importance of our trust in revealed good. And so, when you are overwhelmed with darkness, when the pain, the despair sets in, and there's just so much frustration and disappointment, helplessness, hopelessness, and the darkness is just overwhelming, whisper into the darkness. Hashem will show the way. And this verbal expression of ratzon, amunah, and bitachon, what it does, it opens us up to receive all the yeshuos, all the revealed brachos that Hashem wants to give us, but he can't if we're closed off to it. And by saying Hashem will show the way, we keep ourselves open to miracles. And we do this long enough, we start to experience a personal geula. Now let's go back to the fishnet. What happens when I rise into my personal geula? Who else starts to experience a personal geula? The people around me. And what happens when another holy woman rises into personal geula? The people in her life also start to rise into their personal geula, and another, until at some point there is just a tipping point. It doesn't have to be everyone, but at a certain point there will be so many people rising into personal geula that we will bring geula to the whole world. It should be soon. Before I end, I just want to bring this back to the current situation in Israel. When I was preparing this talk, and I thought to share about the idea of Hashem will show the way, it was shortly before I went to bed that I was thinking about it. And then I went to bed, and right before I went to sleep, I wanted to say an extra prayer specifically for the hostages whose situation is really particularly haunting for all of us. And as I started to say a prayer for them, it almost felt ridiculous. It felt so small. It felt so not enough. You know, their situation, what they're facing, what they're experiencing is so massive. And it just felt so impossible that I could really do anything to help them. And when I thought to myself, it feels impossible that I could help them, I said, oh, then let me make a switch. And I said, Hashem will show me how to do my part to merit the release of the hostages. Hashem will show each one of us how to merit the release of the hostages. And again, there is surrender in this. We cannot control the outcome. We know that this is not about trying to control the outcome. But what this is about not playing small, because we don't serve anyone when we play small. This is about owning our greatness. This is about recognizing the tremendous influence that we have to change the world. So let's all say it. Hashem will show me how to do my part to merit the release of the hostages. And Hashem will show me how to do my part to merit Mashiach, B'rachamim, with mercy. Because at this point, I think that we don't want to just ask, we don't just want to bring Mashiach. I think that we need to get crystal clear on our desires and get specific. And so specifically, we want to ask or say that Hashem will show us how to merit Mashiach B'rachamim. Please help me share the message of Hashem will show the way by sharing this video with others. Thank you.